Alright, patch 11.18 is dropping by the time I upload this video today for Teamfight Tactics, so I wanted to do a quick rundown through the patch notes. So first thing, got some new little legends. Some of them look pretty cool. The new Pengu looks nice. I think that's probably the highlight for me. And got some bundles for it, should you choose to get them. And there's a new esports Pengu, which will be a limited time offering. Costs a little bit more, but it's shiny and special. Alright, on to the big changes. So, starting with Draven. Draven still kind of has the problem of not being a great 4-cost carry. I think he's still probably one of the least used carries in the game. My personal opinion is that it has more to do with his traits and not as much to do with his front to back nature. Though his front to back nature is a problem. The fact that he carries running through the front line before hitting the back line, that is an issue with him. But I think the bigger issue is that his traits force him to basically be in Forgotten 4, which gets you this very awkward front line with 2 Cavalier, 2 Knight, 2 Ironclad. It's just a really awkward front line you play with him, and I think that probably has more to do with it. But hopefully, to get him played more, he's getting some buffs here. So getting a buff across his axe damage and a slight AD buff. Also, pretty much all the 4-cost carries are getting a buff at 3-star. If you didn't notice. Galio. So Galio is getting both kind of a buff here and a nerf here. So the shield damage reduction is being reduced at 1-star and 2-star, but buffed at 3-star, and he's getting a big old 3-star shield damage. The damage that he does off his spell is getting boosted. Galio and Rel are really, really good tanks. I don't think we've quite had tanks in the game that I can compare to being as good as Rel and Galio. Galio with specific item set is kind of unkillable at times, so he did kind of need this 1-star, 2-star nerf. And like I said, he's getting a 3-star buff because all of the 4-costs are getting a 3-star buff for not being particularly spicy enough, I guess. Ivern. So one of the things, I shouldn't say weird, it's just kind of the annoying things about Revenant is that both Ivern and Volibear have a stun. So you can run a 2 frontline Revenant, so they die in self-res, that both have stuns. And I I think Riot's kind of admitted, I think Mortdog in a couple streams admitted, this was probably a mistake that they shouldn't have done, to have both of these champions have stuns. So Ivern's kind of getting a rework here. It's not a straight nerf, more of a rework combined with a nerf, I guess. Um, so the knockup duration has been reduced to half a second. So the knockup is not overly meaningful outside the fact that it's a stun. But at the same time, Daisy is getting a boost to her health and AD. So Daisy becomes a little more tankier. I think that's fair. Ivern's kind of consistently been the best no-item champion in the set. Just kind of fits into any comp, especially if you already have one Revenant. So I think this is fine. Jax. What do I want to say about Jax here? Jax is an interesting champion in that he's one of the he's a melee champion, but the ability they gave him makes it so that he doesn't kind of get screwed over by bad pathing because of his spell being that little leap strike or strike slam, I guess, empowered strike slam. Um, so he doesn't have a lot of the issues in previous sets that like straight up close range melee damage carries have had. What this means is that when they built his scaling, so his ability increases his attack speed, it was probably scaled to be higher than it should have been. Um, and when Jax hits his kind of peak here with this attack speed scaling, he just runs through everything. You can't stop him. He's just going to blow up everything, especially if he's carrying a Bloodthirster. If he's carrying a Bloodthirster, he's going to get all that health back too quickly. He's almost impossible to kill without stuns. So he's getting a nerf across his health, across this speed bonus, and he's also the damage on the actual spell itself is going up a 3-star because they all are. Lucian. Alright, so Lucien is probably the most interesting nerf here. To go up here and kind of exact words, we're addressing 2 Sentinel champions that benefit greatly from optimal itemization. So the thing with Lucien is, I'm not quite sure Lucien really has optimal itemization. What he has is kind of ridiculous item flexibility, because he has significant amount of like physical damage AD that he deals, while at the same time this spell with as many shots as this is does a ton of damage. So you're getting both physical damage and magical damage. So he scales very, very well off both AD and AP. Why is this a problem? This is a problem because if you give him IE and Jewel Gauntlet, he blows up everything. Everything just dies. He usually needs a healing item on top of that, but those 2 items combine to make him just delete everything, regardless of what's happening. His spell blows up everything. The cannon from Cannoneer blows up everything. He does so much damage with that particular item combination, and really I think it's more Jewel Gauntlet's fault more than anything else, being able to buff up this damage. So because of that, they're toning down this damage. I do think this is a pretty big hit. I would have liked to have seen him get a buff to compensate for how hard they hit this spell, but we'll see where he lands. The change to Sentinel overall like made him pretty strong in general. So it might not need it, but I would have kind of liked to see just like maybe like just a tweak to his HP. Tier 5 champions. So, Kayle. If you've never seen a Kayle with a Deathblade, Kayle with a Deathblade Rageblade will wins the lobby. Like, that's... If you manage to get a 2-star Kayle with a Rageblade and a Deathblade and a defensive item, the lobby's over. Like, no one's going to beat that. And the reason for that is because the attack damage scaling, that becomes true damage with Deathblade, it's just obnoxious. It's too high. So that's being toned down, and in return, they're giving an attack damage buff. This is a good change. I like this. Volibear. So Volibear's ult destroys shields, and instead it will now deal double damage to shields. I don't think this was that big an issue now. It kind of was in the original set 5 because you had Mordekaiser, who would just like destroy shields. So I don't think this change is actually that big a deal right now. Items. So these are all Radiant changes that they're making. Radiant Bloodthirster, the shield bonus. So this 60% was too high. I think it's pretty clear this was too high. It was basically free 50% more health for a D carry. Made the champion too hard to spike down if you hit him with like a giant spell that you should be one-shot by. Instead, he had this extra health for no real reason. So that's being toned down a bit. The Stoneplate. Stoneplate Galio is busted. I have nothing else to say about that. Locket. Locket is being kind of reworked. This is actually an interesting change. I'm curious how... I shouldn't say I'm curious. I don't think this will be that impactful, but I'm curious to see if this how this changes the math in some people's minds. So the shield itself, they're taking 200 out of the shields, and now it's just a 100 health bonus to your entire board. It's an interesting change. I'm not quite sure how it's going to... The problem with Locket is a good early game item. And Radiant Locket you can't get till 3-6. So it's no longer that good an item. So I don't think this really changes that issue with Locket. But like this is basically 2 to 3 extra auto attacks on all of your champions. Probably one if it's a carry, and 2 to 3 on everything else. So like this is meaningful. It's not like this is bad. This is actually like meaningful and good. But it's the fact that like just Locket just doesn't scale well into the end game, and you don't get it until the mid game. Static. Static shreds being increased. I can't say much about static. Static is just an awkward item because it's it's scaling off your attack speed, but it's boosting your magic damage. So I'm not quite sure where it's supposed to go in any composition. Because you want to put it on something that attacks super fast, but at the same time, your comp needs to be an AP comp. It's just weird. I wouldn't be surprised if in the future static just goes away. Alright, smaller changes. Trait changes. Hellion 6 and 8 is getting a tiny buff. No one played 6-8 Hellion. You almost always win. You would basically never do it unless you had a emblem. Dragus 3-star buff. Whatever. Nothing to say there. Pike. This is a targeting fix on Pike. I have to see what it does. I honestly am not quite sure how much better this is supposed to make him. This isn't the first time they've reworked Pike's targeting to make him better at hitting things, particularly in the corner. He's always had an issue with that, so we'll see what this does. Nidalee, all my homies hate Nidalee. When Nidalee changes that dodge is out of control. Like it's really good. So seeing a health hit here, it's probably right. Nunu, -50 on the consume across the board. All my homies hate Nunu, particularly the Chinese variant. Yeah, Nunu's kind of just annoying to play against. You beat on him with a bunch of like your front line, and your carry doesn't get on him, so he takes a little bit of damage. But because he got hit so many times, he built up enough mana to consume like your front line, and you're just like, oh, that sucked. So, yeah, this is fine. This is the most interesting one to me. Yasuo Burning Blade cast time reduced. So Yasuo is kind of like what's neat about Yasuo is you can basically build him up 2 different ways. You can build him up so that he's murdering things with the spell, or you can build him up so he's murdering things with the true damage he gets off the ability and the attack speed that comes from that. So this, I mean, realistically, this buffs both because he's going to be both casting his spell more and attacking more. How much we don't know. I'd have to like physically see how much this animation changes, but Yasuo got hit pretty hard in the last batches of patches, so I kind of welcome seeing a buff for him while all the other 3 costs were just like blowing up the game. Yasuo kind of just got left behind because of all the nerfs, so hopefully he's in a better place now with this change. 4 cost. So I believe all of these are just 3-star buffs. So Aphelios, yeah, Aphelios really kind of did need it though. Aphelios 3-star actually like doesn't kill anything. Like there's really not that much difference between the 2-star and the 3-star. It's very weird. Diana, so Diana 3-star already did 2K. Now this is like wipe. Yeah, if you actually hit Diana 3-star, that should probably win you the game because nothing will survive this. Fiddlesticks, slight boost. This doesn't mean anything because this is actually a lot of damage already, so I don't think that one means too much. Karma is actually a pretty good buff, but the problem is you're playing Karma and you have to survive to get Karma 3, so good luck with that. That said, on the plus side, they changed the mana reduction, so now if you have 3-star, it's like basically 1 auto now, just permanent. Like you don't even need mana items, you just 1 auto. I don't think this actually means anything. Well, I guess it does if you're using Sojin. Viego, they nerfed Viego 1 again and buffed Viego 2. Because I think it's pretty clear no one likes Viego. No one likes using him, no one likes playing him because he's often, he freely, like, just, I think I've said this before, he both takes a carry out of the battle and converts like weaker champions otherwise. That it's a lot. He's doing too much. He either needs to just take it out or needs to try to convert. And the reality is, like, the stun that he has where he just channels on top of a champion is just obscene and really obnoxious. Item changes: Radiant Frozen Arts 30 mana going from 60 to 45. I'm going to tell you, I've put this on Diana. It's really good. It's a really good item. Don't doubt it. Gargoyle Stoneplate. Yeah, same thing I said before with Stoneplate. You put this on a Galio, and he becomes really, really hard to kill. Dragon Slayer damage amp when over threshold goes down from 70 to 60. It's a pretty significant boost when you hit that threshold. Like, I'm not quite sure what else to say here. Like, 70% is a lot of extra damage to get just for attacking something that has too much health. Radiant Light Cannon, the bonus attack speed goes from 40 to 30. So, just so you guys understand, Radiant Light Cannon was functioning as Shadow Zeke's and RFC at the same time. Like, that's how, with no downside, that's how ridiculous this item was. Just so you all know, this was better than Rageblade. This was 100% better than Rageblade in nearly every situation. Some bug fixes. I don't think there's much to talk about. Outside, they refixed the Bramble bug. So there was a point where Bramble was blocking too much damage off crits. That's been toned down now. Don't think there's much else to talk about. Yeah, that's about it. So, this patch is pretty minor in my opinion. I don't think it really blows up the meta too much outside of the changes to Ivern. The changes to Ivern might make Revenant frontlines a little less optimal. Just a little bit. I don't think it's really that bad. I also think like Jax got hit pretty hard in this patch between the nerfs to his attack speed and the nerfs to Radiant Bloodthirster. I think these two combine quite a bit to be a little rough. Lucien, kind of the same deal. It changes, like, the item optimization doesn't really change, but the damage it gets off is pretty low. That said, Lucien was already, like, probably one of the best comps on this patch. I haven't played that much of it, but in my opinion, Lucien was probably the best comp behind Kayle, which Kayle should be a better comp. If you just optimize his items, it was pretty tricky, pretty difficult to beat it. Combined with the Sentinel buff. So, that's it for this patch. Wow, I kept this under 20 minutes. I'm all proud of myself. So, I'll post this up, and I'll see you all around. See ya.